welcome back to Didn't Get the Memo on the sofa with Roy Ledgister and myself, Tom Howard. And this week we're doing a bit of a deep dive into Roy's new book, Didn't Get the Memo. How many chapters in total?
I think it's about 10. Do you know, it sounds really vague, right? And I'm going to have to show it to you. I might have to put it down on the laptop, because whenever I'm asked questions, I'm like, ooh, I don't know. Because I've gone through it at a rate of knots. I think it's about 10. It's about 10, including this particular chapter. The preface I haven't counted. It's about 10, 9 or 10.
Okay,
Yeah.
So 10 chapters. So over the next 10 weeks, we're going to be doing a deep dive into each chapter, understanding a bit more about why it's included in the book, what it means to Roy, and of course, giving us a bit of inside info into writing and the process behind it. So chapter 1, do you have a title for it yet?
No.
Okay. Can we go into more detail on what is chapter 1?
Chapter 1 is the only one I don't have a title for. Preface is easy, preface. The others are on particular disciplines, but chapter 1 is about me. Maybe I might just call it me. I don't know.
How about Roy Ledgister?
Yeah. Do you know, I always get a bit embarrassed at seeing my name out there, because I hate making these things about me, as ridiculous as it might sound, right? It's not about me, it's about the message. So I'm always trying to sort of pull away from the whole Roy Ledgister thing, and it probably won't have Roy Ledgister for me.
Okay. Yeah. All right, but chapter 1 is about you. So
yes.
So tell me, how does the book start, and why? And I guess this is where, as we alluded in the previous episode of Didn't Get the Memo, this is where you build credibility around why obviously you've written a book in the first place.
Absolutely. So the preface talks about what I'm hoping to achieve from the book, but chapter 1 sort of gives some background into where I found myself and what made me discover or realise that there is that unspoken word that everybody lives to. And then everyone, they sort of peg themselves to this unspoken word. That average is written, or it's, if not written in black and white, like it takes 6 months to write a book, it's there in the background. You know, you go to school, you work hard, you go to university, you work hard, you get your professional job, you get a mortgage, 2 kids, 2.4 kids actually, you mow the lawn, you get a mortgage, you know, and that's it. You know, you've done really well. You've done really well.
Route, yeah.
It's the conventional route. And I'm thinking, well, actually, it's not conventional. But I'll tell you what really done it for me, right? So the book talks about me, you know, growing up where I grew up in Shepherd's Bush, and, you know, my childhood, not in any great depth, because the point I'm trying to get across there is that I haven't come from poverty.
Yep.
You know, I wasn't sort of scratching around worrying about how we're going to eat and wearing torn clothes. It wasn't like that at all, right? Yeah. And a lot of these sort of stories are always very rags to riches. There was no rags, right? But we weren't rich. You know, my mum brought me up, brought me and my sister up, as also a lawyer, so she'd done quite well, right? But she just worked. She just worked hard. So we never went without. But it certainly wasn't a silver spoon upbringing. I think one of the lines I use in the opening chapter is "no silver spoon needed," right? Which is like a sort of little punchline. But what really done it for me is, as I'd progressed through my career, and I'm at the bar now, I'm a barrister, and I'm doing really well. I'm surrounded by other people who, you could say, were poster kids for the Memo, right? They've done everything according to plan. You know, it doesn't get much better than that. Bearing in mind, the bar is where your pool of, you know, world leaders are pulled from. Not just, you know, Gandhi, you know, and you know, Blair, all these guys, Tony Blair and many other politicians, Keir Starmer, who I know, you know. So all these individuals have been pulled from the bar. These are all barristers. But so here I am sitting at the so-called top table of the Memo readers, if you can call it that. And what I was observing is that I'm surrounded by a lot of people who, instead of being free, instead of living the best life, if you like, right? These people are frightened. These people were frightened of pay cuts, worrying about where the next case was going to come from, worrying about whether their clerks are going to give them a decent case, worrying about how they're going to pay school fees, worrying about what the government's going to do next year. You know, fees hadn't been increased for so long. So I was surrounded by a lot of fear, a lot of worry. And these are the people who made it. I'm thinking, this can't be right. This cannot be right. So they're finding themselves doing things that they didn't really want to do, the types of cases that, you know, white-collar crime, don't get me wrong, it's enjoyable to an extent, but I went into the bar to do blood and guts, murders, guns, that was the sort of stuff that excited me. I wanted to represent the everyday man, right? But I was finding myself doing, frauds and regulate. I don't want to do that. What I really went to the bar for is to represent these people doing these types of cases. And a lot of my colleagues at the bar were doing this type of work because it paid better.
Right.
But it paid better relatively, relative speaking to blood and guts crime, which doesn't pay that well. Okay. Now, I was thinking, I don't want to do this. So rather than wait for the government to whip out their checkbook and write a bigger check, I thought, sod this, I'm going to go and make my own money. I'll go away, I'll make loads of money, then I'll come back and I'll be rich, and then I can do whatever cases I want. That was the thinking behind it. So I didn't get the memo in the sense that I wasn't trapped. I didn't really care. There was nothing that was held over me. I didn't care that I had mortgage. I didn't care that. In fact, I stepped away from the bar when I just bought a new property, right? I just bought a new property on a bridge. So on a bridge, that's like noose around your neck anyway. I bought a property then, it was derelict. You could put your hole through the window frames. I've got no income. And I went to work for free, right? Because I recognised that you have to squat to rise, okay? Now, a lot of my colleagues were there and obviously thinking, they needed to take whatever they can.
Yeah.
They can't afford to take that chance of making the leap. I couldn't afford not to make the leap and take the chance. And that is where I debunk conventional thinking. That if you're in a hole, right, you can either sort of stay there where it's not comfortable, but you can sort of bear it, or you're going to have to take a little bit of pain. But if you've got confidence in yourself, which I did, I had confidence knowing my philosophy. I knew I'd make it happen. So away I go, need to raise 50 million quid. Okay, I give myself 6 months to raise 50 million quid to start this, to go into this new venture. I do it in 4 months. Just applying the rules, in a sector which I knew nothing about. I didn't know how to raise a million quid, let alone, 50. I started off by saying I want to raise 5, and then one day I thought, you know what? Sod it, let's do 50. And just like that, I'd gone from 5 to 50 million. Because it's all made up. If you're going to make up your goals, make up a big one. What's the point of making up a small goal?
So people reading this book will obviously, their first intro to you will be you stepping away from the bar. So your life through to the bar, and then stepping away for the reasons you've just mentioned.
And that's when I started to make some decent, some real leaps and gains, both net worth based, financially, and so on and so forth. It's when I took that risk, when I jumped, and that's why I say the memo frightens us. It frightens us into making the leap, because why are you why are you doing this? What do you need to do it for? When's enough? You're okay. What's the problem? Because all right, you may be better than most. So the memo says stay where you are. Why are you being so greedy?
Convention says you must do it this way because this is the way we've always done it.
This is the way we've always done it. And furthermore, why are you being greedy? What's the point? What's your problem?
Yeah. It's a good outlook. I'm surprised that more people don't live by this. But then I guess, do you have to be a certain kind of person to take the plunge where everybody else at the bar was going after the money, and you're there going, no. I've seen what this can become.
I'm not surprised that most people don't, because it takes some cojones, right? Number one, you've got to be a little bit crazy. There's a part in the book where I talk about, where I sort of revisit the conversation I had with my girlfriend at the time, my fiance at the time. Well, I think she was my fiance at the time. And the conversation went along the lines of, right, so do you know what? I'm gonna step away from the bar and I'm gonna go make some money. And she's like, right. And I said, so I'm going to go and do this, property thing with, a mate of mine. And she's like, right. And I said, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and I'm going to raise 50 million. And she's like, no, I said, I'm going to go and raise 5 million. She's like, have you ever raised 5 million before? I'm like, no, but it'll be fine. She's like, right. And she said, so, and when you step away, how much money are you going to be making? I said, well, actually, I'm working for free. She's like, so you're stepping away to work for free. We've just bought a house. The house needs lots of work.
Yeah.
You've got school fees to pay and so on and so forth. And you're going to do it. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. And she's like, right. It's crazy.
Are you no longer with this woman?
She married me. So who's crazy?
There we are.
Who's the crazier out of the two of us, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, it takes a lot of doing. But have you ever tried to jump, right? Try to jump from a stand. You can't jump that far. You need to squat. You need to go down before you can get that leap. You need to squat to rise. So I realised, again, it's my philosophy. I had to squat. If I needed to get that to get that momentum, I needed to go right down before I could come back up. You can't do it from a stand where most people try to get from first base to second base.
I like the terminology, and this is in the book.
All of that's in the book. So I'm trying to, in the book, I try to make it very easy to read and very lively. It has to be easy to read because I'm not a great writer, right? But so it's just very sort of simplistic, very basic, just lots of analogies and just telling my story, and all the lines come out because this is what I live my life by. So that's why it's easy for me to write it. You know, squat to rise. My wife hears that all the time. You know, she'll be saying to me, "When are we going to get out of the squat?" You know, like, all in good time. But you've got to go. You know, you've got to take a step back to take 2 forward sometimes. You know, so that's sort of chapter 1, a bit more about the background, how I got to the bar and when I was doubting myself, right? So this was an important bit. So this features a fair amount. When I was having doubts myself, when I was a kid, and even though I was reading these books and listening to these tapes, and I was pretty brainwashed, to be completely honest, notwithstanding, I was still having doubts about my capabilities. So there's a chapter on self-belief, and even though I knew all the things that I needed to know and go for it, and I can do this, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, come on, man, you can't do this. You know, my sister's boyfriend, the guy she was seeing at the time for many years, he was a salesman. And I'm convincing myself I could be a good salesman, but I couldn't be a good lawyer. I'd never met a lawyer. I'd met a salesman. I thought I could be a salesman, couldn't be a lawyer. Now, here's the thing.
Relate more at the time.
Right, but here's the thing. And this is a bit I touch on in the book as well. I had done sales, right? In a school holiday, I went and got a sales job.
Okay.
I went and got a sales job. And in this sales job, I was selling chemicals. I don't know what I was selling, right? But I remember one day, I worked there for 2 days. One day was day of training. Yeah. The second day was my day of work. Yeah. And I didn't go back for a third, right? So, it was a 2-day job, okay? So day 2, I managed to sell some barrier cream. Don't ask me what it is, but I sold a 10-litre tub of barrier cream, made my money, happy days. But after that, I was getting shouted at. I was like, I can't do this. Yeah. Anyway, so my sales career was very short-lived, right? It lasted 2 days. One of the days was training. So it lasted 1 day. But notwithstanding that, my mind was still tuned into, but you'll be a good salesperson. But the evidence, the data seemed to suggest you're not a very good salesman, right? However, it was telling me I couldn't be a lawyer, something I'd never tried before. So even though the evidence suggested that I couldn't do something, your mind will cherry pick, make you choose what you want to choose because of your environment.
Got it.
So that's...
And you talk about, throughout the book, without giving away too much of chapters 2 to 10, you give away tips for the readers to help train their mind, as well as obviously be empowered and be motivated and understand a bit more about what you can do.
It's less about motivation because 36 years ago when I started listening to this stuff, it was all about motivation. But people realise that motivation doesn't last long. It's like taking a shower, right? You still need to go and have another shower tomorrow or this evening. It doesn't last. So motivation only lasts for so long. The book is not a strategy book. It's not a book about strategy. I'm trying to weave a philosophy gently by telling my stories, number one. And there should be enough examples for people to think, I can relate to that. Yeah, and at the same time, they can see how I battled with things and how I still battle with things, because something that I am very keen on getting across is that there's no magic. It doesn't happen like you just flick a switch and, wow, I'm now Roy Wonder guy who can go out and do anything. It doesn't work like that. It's a continuous approach on trying to bet yourself. So there's no strategy as such. Maybe I will write a book where you say, this is your strategy. It's not a book on how to go and make millions. It's not that type of book. No. It's just saying, it's there to design. It's designed to make you just hit pause in your life and stop and think, hold on a minute, whose life am I living here? And what are the standards I'm trying to reach here? And who has set those standards? You should set your own standards. Let me give you a little story, if you don't mind, one little anecdote, right? So it's a story I came across many years ago, and I think it may have been told by Zig Ziglar possibly, who was one of the guys I used to listen to as a kid growing up. And it's about a guy and a girl who are about to have dinner. And the girl, she's putting the ham into the oven, and she cuts the heel off the ham before she puts it into the oven. And the guy says to her, he says, well, whatever her name is, I don't know, let's call her Jenny. He's like, Jenny, why'd you cut the heel of the ham? She says, well, I always cut the heel of the ham. He says, yeah, but why'd you cut the heel of the ham before you put it in the oven? And she says, well, everyone does that. He says, well, I don't do it. And she says, well, my mum does it. Yeah. So he says, okay, well, why does your mum do it? She says, I don't know. He says, well, why don't you call your mum? So call up mum. Mum, I'm here with Jack, and Jack's just asked me, why I cut the heel of the ham before I put it into the oven. And Mum says, well, everyone does it. She says, well, yeah, okay, but why do they do it? And she said, well, Nan does it. Yeah, so, it goes, call Nan. Nan, why, blah, blah, blah. And so Nan says, well, the reason I cut the heel off the ham is because my oven's too small. Right? Now, that's what we go through life. We just start following everyone else's behaviour, not knowing why they did what they did back in the day. So it's about hitting pause in your life and saying, hold on a minute, am I doing things because it's the right thing to do? I.e., am I writing the book in 30 days because I know I can? Or am I writing it in 6 months because that's what I'm told is the amount of time it takes to write a book? And that's how we're living our lives.
That's only chapter 1.
There we go.
Jesus. Well, thank you very much.
That's a bit heavy for a Monday morning, isn't it?
I mean, this will go out on a Friday. It's a Monday right this second, and I feel like it's Friday already. Right.
Nice one.
Thanks, my man.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We're going to be talking all about chapter 2 next week.
Next week. I think that's self-belief.
Self-belief, there we are. Yeah. So you can look forward to all of that and subscribe and add all of the podcasts and YouTube channels on all of the links that will be on your screen right here. Thank you very much.
Cheers.